All right, class. So this lecture is going to cover, explaining a little bit about what rhetoric is, and it's also going to cover the assignment sheet for the rhetorical analysis essay. So far we've already figured out how to do analysis, discussing how things work, how things function. So now we're jumping over to rhetoric. Okay, so like the first time I was in college, the professor started talking about rhetoric this, rhetoric that, and I was sitting there, what the hell is he talking about? I had to look it up in a dictionary. We had to carry dictionaries back then and have phones. What is rhetoric? Well, basically, rhetoric is the use of words, and sometimes art can also be tied in, like for instance in our graphic novel, My Friend Dahmer. But is the use of words to influence or persuade people to make meaning, as an author. Okay? And also the study of other people's words and the study of your own, how you craft your own words. But that is what rhetoric is, the use of words. Study of how language is used to communicate. So what we're going to be analyzing are the four main points of rhetoric in My Friend Dahmer. And you will choose one of the four main ones from below to focus your essay on, that you're going to write on. So, of course, author and author credibility is, how an author establishes his or her credibility, how we can believe what they say, how they can become a trustworthy source. Things to consider are the author's education, work experience, success in his field, thoroughness and validity of his research, and other ways that he reveals information about himself or herself. For instance, in this comic, Backdurf, reveals a lot of stuff about himself that's, not flattering. Also, control of use of grammar, punctuation, sounding like you know what you're talking about, reputation. All these things increase author credibility and authority. And those are techniques you can use as well. That's what ethos is. Ethos is author credibility. Now, thinking of the audience, pathos, the emotional aspect. So one thing you consider is who is the primary, secondary, and tertiary audiences. In other words, who's the audience that an author is focused at? How does that affect their work and the way they write or the way they do anything or what they say? Second, who is the audience, that you're not necessarily writing for, but that they're going to read your work. And how does that affect the way that you write? And then the tertiary audience is an audience you never expected to read your work. Like I'm sure Backdurf didn't expect you guys to be reading this in a college level class when he wrote it. Okay, other parts of audience in terms of rhetoric are thinking about how did the author craft his words or her words for the particular audience. How did it affect word choice? How did it affect syntax, tone, subject matter? Okay, so this is very similar to literary analysis when we analyze poems, but you're going to be analyzing an author's narration, an author's dialogue choices, word choices in that narration. All right, topic, genre, style, medium has to do with logos and pathos, but basically it's a consideration of how are you going to deliver your message as a writer, or analyzing how another writer chose to deliver their message. Is it a poem? Is it a song? Is it a speech? Is it a short story? In this case, we have a graphic novel. So be analyzing why he did this. In what ways is a graphic novel more effective than, a novel or a short story or a memoir? In what ways, why did the author choose that? And a lot of times, topic, genre, style, medium is also tied into purpose. If you think about why an author is trying to get a certain thing across, sometimes that affects what the topic, genre, style, or medium he or she uses will be. Okay, purpose has to do, with logos, pathos, and ethos, but essentially, why is the author writing what she or he is writing? Why did they do it? And what is their purpose? What are they trying to get across to the reader? So you're looking at the motivations of the writer. You're looking at the writer's goals and what they hope to achieve. Now, I've included a video that has hundreds of other little minor rhetorical strategies like syntactical strategy like parallel structure or the rhetorical question, stuff like that. But these are the four main ones that I want you to focus on for this essay. I want you to choose one. Now, all the little rhetorical strategies, they all kind of fall under these top four categories. Okay? All right. Now, kind of remember that this essay is an analysis, so some of the same rules that are for the poetry explication apply. It should be in third person, for example. Okay, no second person you, no I. All right, so here's some tips about rhetorical analysis essays. You always have, that first sentence or two of the introduction that tells who the reader or who the author is, what the name of the book is, and a quick summary of what it's about. And also you have what's called a rhetorical analysis thesis. So this is a thesis that essentially discusses what you're analyzing, how the author uses rhetorical devices to make a point. Now, that's going to be very different for a lot of your essays, depending on if you're on audience or purpose. But, if you're doing audience, you will discuss, for instance, what techniques the author uses for his audience. Who is the author's audience? All that's going to make up a thesis. But if you're going to be talking about purpose, your thesis is going to be discussing what the purpose is of your author. What's his motivations? Why did he do what he did? And what does he hope to achieve out of it? For example, if it's author credibility, you're going to be, giving us a rundown of why he's a credible author, summed up, Okay, so besides the thesis, the rest of the introduction at number 3 here should be sentences that discuss your main points about the author's use of rhetoric and research that you will be discussing in the essay, kind of like foreshadowing, stuff that doesn't fall in the thesis. And, look, if your thesis is more than one sentence, that's fine. At this college level, you should be having more complex, theses with, multiple points. Okay? Look, your body paragraph should still be controlled by a main idea, and that main idea has to be proving your thesis and main points, and so you want to group your main points, under, a main idea that makes sense. For instance, if you're doing author credibility, maybe you want to do, his education, work experience, and the awards he was won in the body paragraph. Then move on to other things for the other body paragraphs. Okay? Look at, be sure, you still have transitional sentences. You still need to integrate quotes properly. Your conclusion should kind of wrap everything up and show that how it's all connected, towards reiterating your main point or thesis. All right. Thank you, class.